Long before the modern world began keeping records, there were civilizations that rose, thrived, and mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind stories carved in stone, myths passed down through generations, and unanswered questions that haunt us to this day. Among these civilizations, none is more fascinating than the Sumerians, the ancient inhabitants of Mesopotamia, often called the cradle of civilization. The Sumerians were pioneers of human progress. They gifted humanity its earliest written language, created intricate city-states, and established religious systems so advanced that they still puzzle historians. Yet, for all their brilliance, they also left behind enigmas, secrets buried in clay tablets and ruins, mysteries that even the sharpest scientific minds have yet to solve. One of the most compelling mysteries concerns the Anunnaki, gods of Sumerian mythology, whose name translates to those who came from the heavens. According to legend, the Anunnaki descended to Earth, bringing with them wisdom, power, and perhaps something far greater: control over the destiny of humankind itself. In their sacred stories, the Anunnaki are depicted as mighty beings with knowledge beyond comprehension. It was said they were the architects of humanity, mixing divine essence with the clay of the earth to create the first human beings. Central to this myth is Enki, also called Ea, the wise and compassionate god who shaped mankind. He did so not out of selfishness, but to ease the burden on humanity, who suffered under the harsh will of other gods. In one tale, Enki and his sister, Ninhursag, molded humans from clay, then breathed into them the spark of life. Thus, humanity was born. Yet this creation was far from perfect. Humans disobeyed. They questioned. They resisted divine authority. Angered by these flaws, the gods unleashed punishments upon mankind: famine, suffering, and even a cataclysmic flood meant to wipe the slate clean. Here lies the first great enigma. Were these merely allegories, or could they hint at something more profound? Some scholars believe the Anunnaki were symbolic representations of natural forces or deities, but others dare to suggest a far more radical idea: that the Sumerians recorded encounters with extraterrestrial beings, visitors from another world whose advanced technology and knowledge appeared divine to ancient eyes. Supporters of this theory point to peculiar descriptions in the texts, references to the Anunnaki descending from the sky or wielding powers no mortal could understand. They ask, could these be misunderstood accounts of ancient astronauts? Beings whose genetic manipulation gave birth to modern humans? Such questions fuel endless debates, straddling the line between mythology and science fiction. But the mysteries of Sumer are not limited to myths of gods. Among their most intriguing legacies are Sumerian seals, tiny carved stones used for identification and decoration. These seals were pressed into clay to leave an impression, often depicting gods, celestial scenes, and puzzling objects. To the casual eye, they are simply works of art. But look closely, and you'll see symbols that hint at something extraordinary. Some seals appear to depict the solar system, planets arranged around the sun, long before humanity officially discovered them. Others show strange shapes and objects that some interpret as flying machines or celestial phenomena. Were these just artistic expressions, or could they represent ancient memories of things seen in the skies? One theory suggests that UFO sightings, often assumed to be a modern phenomenon, actually date back thousands of years. The Egyptians, like the Sumerians, left behind records of strange objects hovering above the earth. To them, these glowing shapes were not machines, but divine omens, gifts from the heavens. Could it be that the gods themselves were inspired by what they saw in the skies? Seals also carry deeply religious meanings. Some bore protective symbols meant to ward off evil. Others displayed the tree of life, winged creatures, and hybrid beasts that still captivate us today. These tiny works of art, created with remarkable craftsmanship, give us a glimpse into a civilization obsessed with the interplay between the divine and the mortal. And yet their full meaning remains locked away, waiting for someone to decode the final piece of the puzzle. But perhaps one of the strangest mysteries from Sumerian art lies in depictions of gods carrying mysterious handbags. Across Mesopotamian sculptures, deities are often shown holding small purse-like objects. At first glance, they seem ordinary. But why would gods, immortal beings of immense power, carry something so human? Some scholars argue that these handbags symbolized wealth and status, while others believe they represented sacred knowledge, a container for divine secrets. Another theory suggests they symbolized sustenance, representing food or life itself carried by the gods for humanity. What makes this symbol even more perplexing is its global presence. Identical handbags appear in artwork from ancient Turkey, Central America, and even New Zealand, spanning continents and cultures that supposedly never connected. How could such a specific symbol emerge across the ancient world unless it carried some universal meaning? Some suggest it represented the cosmos itself, the semicircle handle symbolizing the heavens and the rectangular body representing the earth, a bridge between mortal and divine. As we follow the thread of these enigmas, we encounter the great Sumerian flood myth, one of the earliest stories of its kind. Thousands of years before the biblical tale of Noah, the Sumerians told of Zusidra, a righteous man forewarned by the god Enki of a catastrophic flood. He was instructed to build a great vessel, to gather animals of every kind and to preserve life from the coming deluge. When the waters came, they engulfed the land for 7 days and nights, until at last they receded, and Zusidra offered thanks to the gods. The similarities between this tale and the story of Noah are undeniable. Could it be that the biblical flood is a retelling of this older Sumerian legend? The flood myth may not only recount an actual natural disaster, but also serve as an allegory. It speaks of human arrogance, of civilizations that grow corrupt and face divine retribution. It also reflects a timeless theme: destruction followed by rebirth, chaos followed by renewal. This cycle appears across countless cultures, suggesting it is deeply embedded in humanity's collective memory. Even today, scholars and scientists continue to debate whether these myths stemmed from real geological events, massive floods in Mesopotamia caused by the unpredictable rivers that nourished yet also threatened the earliest civilizations. As centuries passed, these stories were not forgotten. They were etched into clay tablets, guarded by priests, and passed down from generation to generation. For the Sumerians, myths were not simply entertainment. They were guides to morality, warnings against hubris, and explanations for the mysteries of the cosmos. And so we begin our journey into the unsolved mysteries of the ancient world, from gods that may not have been gods, to artifacts that defy explanation, to stories that echo across continents and millennia. These riddles remain unsolved not because we lack intelligence, but because they belong to a time when myth and reality were one. This is just the beginning, and already we stand before questions that may never be answered. Who were the Anunnaki? Why did the Sumerians carve the skies into their seals? And why do gods carry handbags across the world's ancient art? The truth may be lost in time, but the mysteries live on, whispering to us from clay, stone, and story. The story of the Sumerians doesn't end with their myths of gods and floods. Their civilization left behind countless artifacts that continue to puzzle scholars, raising questions that stretch far beyond their own culture. Each discovery opens a new doorway into the unknown, and each artifact whispers of a time when humanity stood on the edge of mystery. Take, for example, the Lamassu, colossal winged guardians of the Assyrian Empire. Though their origins traced later than Sumer, they are descendants of that Mesopotamian spirit carved into stone with bodies of lions or bulls, wings of eagles, and human faces radiating wisdom. Recently, one such Lamassu was re-excavated in Iraq after lying hidden for decades. This massive sculpture, weighing nearly 20 tons, had once guarded the gates of the Assyrian city of Dul-Shadukin. Why hide such a magnificent artifact underground? Because war had made it vulnerable. In times of chaos, archaeologists buried the body of Lamassu to save it from destruction, leaving only its head to be preserved in a museum. When uncovered again, its sheer size and artistry stunned modern eyes. Every feather of its wings, every curl of its beard had been crafted with painstaking detail. These guardians were not merely decorative. They were symbols of power, meant to strike fear into enemies and reassure citizens that divine protectors stood watch. Yet their mystery runs deeper. To the Assyrians, the Lamassu were not more than myth. They were believed to repel evil, to physically protect cities from dark forces. Were they simply symbols of belief or echoes of something far older? Some suggest the Lamassu may have been inspired by sightings or traditions of beings not fully human, guardians from beyond. The fact that such hybrid creatures, part animal, part man, appear in cultures across the globe only deepens the riddle. And still, the greatest puzzle remains. Why did these advanced civilizations, including Sumer, suddenly vanish? The Sumerians thrived for over 3 millennia, cultivating fertile land, writing on clay tablets, and ruling through city-states that competed yet prospered. They pioneered agriculture, invented the wheel, and mapped the stars. But by the dawn of the 2nd millennium BCE, their presence began to fade from history. Cities were abandoned, cultures absorbed, and within centuries, Sumer was gone. Why? Historians put forward several theories. One of the most compelling involves environmental collapse. The land of Mesopotamia, so fertile thanks to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, had been pushed to its limits. Overfarming stripped the soil, deforestation and overgrazing led to erosion, and eventually salt from irrigation poisoned the fields. Once green lands turned barren. Without food, famine spread, and cities weakened. But environment alone may not explain the collapse. The Sumerians were also plagued by internal conflict. Their world was not a single unified empire, but a patchwork of city-states, Ur, Uruk, Lagash, Eridu, each ruled by its own king. These cities often fought bitter wars vying for dominance. Over time, constant conflict drained their strength, leaving them vulnerable to outsiders. And outsiders came. As neighboring powers rose, the Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians, the Sumerians were slowly absorbed. Their culture didn't disappear entirely. It lived on through the peoples who conquered them. But the distinct voice of Sumer was silenced, its language eventually forgotten. Even so, mysteries remain. Could disease have played a role? Were they struck by natural disasters? Or did nomadic tribes deliver the final blow? The truth is likely a combination of many factors: environmental decline, political strife, invasion, and fate itself. But the lesson is clear. Even the mightiest civilizations are fragile, their survival balanced on the razor edge of nature and human choice. Still, their disappearance only adds weight to their enduring mysteries. If a people so advanced could vanish, what other knowledge might have been lost with them? What secrets lie buried beneath Mesopotamian sands waiting for rediscovery? Among their most baffling legacies is their astonishing knowledge of the cosmos. The Sumerians were not only farmers and builders, they were sky watchers. Their priests studied the heavens, charting stars and planets with remarkable precision. Their myths were laced with cosmic symbolism, suggesting a deep connection between their gods and the skies. In their pantheon, Anu was king of the heavens, seated on a throne among the stars. Enlil, god of air and earth, controlled the forces of nature, ensuring fertility. Together with Enki, Inanna, and countless others, these deities represented celestial order. But here lies the enigma. How could a people over 4,000 years ago know so much about the heavens? Some seals and tablets appear to depict not just the sun and moon, but planets, including Uranus and Neptune, which modern science only confirmed in the past few centuries. Skeptics argue these interpretations stretch imagination. Believers counter. How else could they have known? The myth of Inanna's descent to the underworld, for instance, is more than a tale of a goddess visiting her sister Ereshkigal. To some, it reflects astronomical alignments, a symbolic repelling of celestial movements. The Enuma Elish, their epic of creation, recounts a battle between gods and primordial chaos, which some see as a poetic description of cosmic order emerging from chaos. Were these purely allegorical myths or fragments of ancient astronomical knowledge encoded in story? We may never know. But the idea that a civilization so ancient held advanced insights into the universe keeps curiosity alive. The mysteries extend beyond Mesopotamia. Far across the seas in South America lies another puzzle: the sealed tunnel beneath the Temple of the Sun in Cusco, Peru. Roughly 1,800 years ago, massive boulders were placed to block this passage, sealing it off forever. Why? Some say it was to protect treasures from invaders, for the temple was once adorned with gold. Others suggest it was part of a religious ritual, a symbolic sealing meant to contain sacred energy. Others wonder if it was due to natural disaster, perhaps to prevent collapse. To this day, the true reason remains locked behind those stones. And then there is Teotihuacán, the city of the gods in Mexico. Its pyramids and avenues stretch across miles, yet its builders remain unknown. The Aztecs who discovered its ruins centuries later believed it was crafted by divine beings, not mortals. Was it the Toltecs, the Maya, or an entirely forgotten people whose legacy lies only in stone? Whoever they were, they created one of the largest cities of the ancient world, home to perhaps 200,000 people, with pyramids rivaling those of Egypt. And then, mysteriously, they too vanished, leaving no written records, no clear answers. The Aztecs themselves were heirs to these mysteries, building their empire upon earlier ruins. They were master builders, erecting pyramids, temples, and canals that still stand as marvels today. But even their greatness could not withstand fate. When the Spanish arrived in the early 1500s, they brought more than steel and horses. They brought disease. Smallpox swept through the Aztec Empire like wildfire, killing millions within a few years. Entire cities were devastated. Some estimate 15 million lives were lost. With their numbers shattered, their empire crumbled, leaving only fragments of a once great civilization. It is sobering to realize that the fall of the Aztecs was not just a result of war, but of an invisible enemy. Disease, carried unknowingly across oceans, altered the destiny of an entire people. This, too, is a mystery, not of what happened, but of how fragile human existence can be when faced with forces beyond control. Yet even in their downfall, the Aztecs left behind enigmas that endure. One of the most intriguing is the legend of Aztlan, the mythical homeland of the Aztecs. Said to be a place of beauty and abundance, Aztlan was where their ancestors once lived before migrating to the Mexico Valley. But was Aztlan a real place or a symbolic myth? Some believe it was a lost land to the north, perhaps in modern-day Mexico, or even the deserts of the southwestern United States. Others see it as a spiritual homeland, a symbol of origin and unity. To this day, Aztlan lives on as a cultural and political symbol, inspiring descendants of the Aztec people. Like the Sumerians, the Aztecs remind us that myths are not simply tales. They're maps of meaning, vessels of identity, and often echoes of truth buried deep in history. From Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, from gods that descend from the sky to pyramids whose builders are unknown, these mysteries connect across continents. They remind us that legends of ancient civilizations are not just about temples, gods, and floods. They also whisper of things that sound almost impossible. Tales of giants, lost cities, and technologies that seem far too advanced for their time. These stories push us to question how much of what we dismiss as myth might actually be echoes of forgotten truths. One such tale emerges from the deep jungles of Ecuador, where local tribes speak of a lost city built by giants. To the people who live there, these are not fairy tales. They are memories passed down through generations of colossal beings who once walked the earth. In recent years, explorers were guided by tribes into remote regions of the jungle where they stumbled upon something extraordinary. Hidden beneath centuries of growth lay massive stone structures, including what appeared to be a pyramid almost 80 meters wide. Its blocks were enormous, some weighing over 2 tons, each carved and fitted with precision. Alongside these ruins, researchers found gigantic tools, hammers so large they could not have been wielded by human hands. Was this truly a city built by giants? Or was it in natural formation, later given mythic meaning? The Ecuadorian government dismissed the site as a natural rock formation, yet those who saw it with their own eyes believed differently. The sheer scale, the craftsmanship, and the oversized tools suggested human or perhaps superhuman design. The legend of giants is not confined to South America. Stories of towering beings appear in cultures across the world, from the Nephilim in the Hebrew Bible, to the Titans of Greek mythology, to the Jotnar of Norse legends. Could these separate traditions all point to a shared memory of an ancient race that once walked the earth? If such beings existed, they would challenge everything we know about human history. Yet the evidence remains tantalizingly elusive, leaving us only with myths and a handful of mysterious ruins. Another riddle comes not from ruins but from writing itself. On the island of Crete, the ancient Minoans developed a script known as Linear A. Despite decades of study, no one has been able to decipher it. Thousands of clay tablets bear its symbols, pictograms, lines, and marks that clearly form a language, but the key to understanding them remains locked. Why has Linear A resisted translation? Unlike the Rosetta Stone, which unlocked Egyptian hieroglyphs by providing parallel text, no such artifacts exists for Linear A. Worse, it appears to be unrelated to any known language, leaving scholars with no foundation to build upon. Its inscriptions are also short and fragmented, offering little context. Some speculate it represents a completely lost language, one that died with the fall of the Minoan civilization. Others believe it may hide connections to other ancient tongues waiting to be revealed. Until the code is cracked, the thoughts and beliefs of one of history's most advanced Bronze Age cultures remain hidden from us. This unsolved script reminds us that language itself can be a mystery. How many other voices of the past remain silent, etched in symbols that modern minds can no longer comprehend? Each undeciphered text is like a locked door, guarding the wisdom of forgotten peoples. Moving from Europe back to the Americas, we encounter another puzzle,
The Olmecs, one of the earliest great civilizations of Mesoamerica. Long before the rise of the Maya and the Aztecs, the Olmecs carved colossal stone heads, each weighing many tons, each with unique facial features that suggest they were portraits of rulers. How did a society over 3,000 years ago, with no advanced machinery, carve and transport these enormous heads? The quarries from which the stone was sourced lay miles away. Some believe they were moved by rafts and sledges, but the exact methods remain uncertain. Even more mysterious is what became of the Olmec civilization. Between 1400 and 400 BCE, they flourished, building cities, ceremonial centers, and ball courts. Then suddenly, they declined and disappeared. Some suggest environmental collapse, volcanic eruptions, or shifting trade routes. Others wonder if their disappearance was more abrupt, brought on by invasion or internal strife. Whatever the cause, the Olmecs left behind a legacy that profoundly influenced later cultures. The Maya and Aztecs inherited their religious symbols, artistic styles, and possibly their understanding of astronomy. Yet the Olmecs themselves remained shadowy, their identity blurred by time, their story still half told. When we consider the Olmecs alongside the Sumerians, the Minoans, and countless others, a pattern emerges. Civilizations rise, innovate, leave behind astonishing achievements, and then vanish, often without clear explanation. It's as if history itself is full of sudden silences, civilizations blinking out like stars, leaving only their light behind. But not all mysteries lie in the distant past. Some are uncomfortably modern. Consider the question of directed energy weapons. For decades, whispers circulated that militaries were developing weapons using focused beams of energy, lasers and microwaves capable of disabling electronics or even destroying targets without bullets or bombs. Many dismissed such talk as conspiracy or science fiction. And yet, in recent years, the U.S. Navy revealed that such weapons are indeed real. Lasers mounted on ships capable of burning drones out of the sky. Microwave devices that can disable electronics. The technology, once secret, is now openly discussed, though its full capabilities remain classified. Why is this relevant to the mysteries of ancient civilizations? Because it raises an unsettling possibility. What if advanced technologies existed in the past, long before modern times, only to be lost? Could the myths of divine weapons, the thunderbolts of Zeus, the fire lances of gods, be distorted memories of forgotten technologies? Skeptics may scoff, but the question lingers. If technology can appear, disappear, and reappear in our own time, why not in the distant past? The search for lost knowledge extends into the biblical world as well, with the legend of Ophir, a lamb said to be overflowing with gold, visited by King Solomon himself. The Bible describes vast amounts of wealth flowing from Ophir to Israel, yet never reveals its location. Some place it in modern Yemen, others in Ethiopia, or even as far as India. King Solomon's riches were legendary. It is said he amassed over 500 tons of gold during his reign. But where did it come from? Was Ophir a real place, a distant kingdom with mines beyond imagining? Or was it a symbol, a mythic land of abundance, never meant to be found? Explorers have searched for centuries, but Ophir remains lost. And perhaps that is fitting, for sometimes the greatest mysteries are not those we solve, but those that continue to beckon, drawing us onward into the unknown. As we weave these threads together, a picture begins to form. A world filled with civilizations whose knowledge and power seem to leap beyond their time. A world where myths make concealed truths and where ruins and artifacts still whisper of secrets waiting to be uncovered. But the deeper we go, the more we realize that these mysteries are not isolated. They echo across continents, connecting Sumerians with South Americans, Minoans with Mesopotamians, and myths of giants with gods descending from the sky. Are these mere coincidences, or could they be evidence of a hidden history, a chapter of humanity's story that has been lost to time, yet leaves behind faint traces in myth and stone. One thing is certain, humanity has always been drawn to the unknown. We stare at the ruins, the tablets, the carvings, and we feel the same awe as those who first told these stories thousands of years ago. The mysteries endure not just because they lack answers, but because they speak to something deeper in us, the eternal human desire to seek, to question, and to wonder. And so we continue the journey. Ahead lie even more enigmas, forgotten tunnels sealed in stone, vanished peoples who left no trace, and legends of lands of origin that may or may not have existed. Each one invites us to step closer, to listen, and to imagine. Because perhaps the greatest mystery of all is not whether these stories are true, but why they still resonate with us today.
Across time, civilizations have risen like mighty waves and then receded into silence, leaving behind ruins, relics, and myths that ignite our imagination. But not every mystery lies hidden in ancient temples or carved into stone tablets. Some are buried beneath the earth, sealed away by human hands, as if to hide secrets too powerful or too dangerous for future generations to uncover. Take the sealed tunnel beneath the Temple of the Sun in Cusco, Peru. Almost 1,800 years ago, someone deliberately blocked this passage with massive boulders. Archaeologists have speculated for decades about what might lie inside. Was it treasure, gold, silver, offerings to the gods? Was it a sacred ritual chamber, sealed to mark the end of an era? Or was it a place of power, closed off to protect the world, or perhaps to protect us from what it contained? The Incas were known for their complex ceremonies and their deep connection to the spiritual world. Some scholars believe the sealing of the tunnel may have been symbolic, a way of closing off a path between worlds. Others suggest a more practical reason, to prevent looting by invaders or to protect sacred treasures from destruction. Still, the truth remains hidden behind stone, locked away by hands that may have known more than we ever will. This theme of sealed mysteries repeats itself in the ruins of Teotihuacán, the ancient city of the gods in Mexico. Even today, archaeologists continue to discover hidden tunnels and chambers beneath its pyramids. The city's builders remain unknown. No written language has survived, no clear record of who they were. By the time the Aztecs discovered its abandoned pyramid centuries later, they believed it had been built not by humans at all, but by gods. At its height, Teotihuacán was one of the largest cities in the world, with a population perhaps as high as 200,000. Its streets were laid out with astonishing precision, its pyramids aligned with celestial events. The Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Avenue of the Dead still dominate the landscape today, testaments to a people whose name we do not even know. How could such a mighty civilization rise and then disappear without leaving behind even a written record? Some theories suggest famine, invasion, or internal revolt. Others propose that environmental collapse, the drying of rivers, or volcanic activity drove its people away. But the mystery remains. A city of gods, built by hands we cannot identify. And yet, as mysterious as the builders of Teotihuacán are, they are not the only civilization swallowed by time. The Aztecs, who once ruled much of Mexico, faced their own cataclysm. Unlike Teotihuacán, their downfall was not gradual, but sudden and brutal. When the Spanish arrived in the early 1500s, led by Hernán Cortés, the Aztec Empire was vast and powerful. Its capital, Tenochtitlan, was a city of marvels built upon a lake crisscrossed with canals and home to dazzling temples. Spanish accounts describe it as more beautiful than any European city of its time. But beauty could not protect it from what came next. Along with swords and gunpowder, the Spanish brought something far deadlier: smallpox. The disease spread with terrifying speed, killing an estimated 15 million people within a few short years. Entire families, villages, and cities were wiped out. The Aztec Empire crumbled, its warriors too few to resist, its society too devastated to recover. In many ways, this was the most mysterious and tragic blow of all. Not a war of men, but a war of microbes. How could a civilization so strong fall to an enemy they could not see? It was not only the Aztecs. Across the Americas, diseases carried by Europeans reshaped entire continents, ending cultures that had thrived for centuries. Yet, even in the face of destruction, the Aztecs left behind mysteries that endure. One of the most enduring is the legend of Aztlan, the mythical homeland from which their ancestors once came. In Aztec mythology, Aztlan was a paradise, a land of abundance and beauty where gods walked among mortals. But over time, the people were forced to leave, embarking on a long migration that eventually led them to the Valley of Mexico, where they founded Tenochtitlan. But where was Aztlan? Some believe it was a real place, somewhere in northern Mexico or the American Southwest. Others see it as a symbolic homeland, a spiritual place of origin that exists only in myth. Even today, Aztlan remains a powerful cultural symbol for descendants of the Aztecs, a reminder of their roots and identity. The idea of a lost homeland is not unique to the Aztecs. Across cultures, from the fabled island of Atlantis to the Garden of Eden, we find recurring stories of paradises lost, origins obscured by time. Are these merely myths? Or did they reflect ancient migrations, real lands whose memory was transformed into legend? The further we look into the past, the more we see this blending of myth and history. Consider the accounts of giants in South America, or the untranslated scripts like Linear A in Crete. These are reminders that much of our past remains beyond our understanding, as if we're piecing together a vast puzzle with most of its pieces missing. The Olmecs were also a remaining unsolved riddle. Flourishing in southern Mexico over 3,000 years ago, they built massive ceremonial centers and carved colossal stone heads, some of them taller than a man. Each head bears a unique face, leading scholars to believe they were portraits of rulers. But how did a civilization so advanced leave behind so little written record? Why did they vanish so abruptly? Theories abound: climate change, volcanic eruptions, political collapse. But none fully explain the sudden end of such a remarkable culture. Like the Sumerians and the builders of Teotihuacán, the Olmecs remind us how fragile civilizations can be, and how easily their stories can be lost. Yet their influence lived on. The Maya and the Aztecs inherited many Olmec traditions, from religious symbols to artistic styles. In this way, the Olmecs may never have truly disappeared, but rather became the unseen ancestors of later civilizations. Still, what if the mysteries of these civilizations go beyond cultural inheritance? What if they once possessed knowledge we can scarcely imagine? Some researchers point to myths of ancient weapons of power, beams of fire, tools of the gods that sound eerily like technologies we're only now rediscovering. For centuries, tales of directed energy weapons were dismissed as fantasy, but today, militaries openly test lasers and microwave systems capable of destroying targets without traditional ammunition. If such weapons are possible now, could they have existed in the past, only to be lost in the collapse of forgotten civilizations? The same question arises with the wealth of Ophir, the legendary land said to have supplied King Solomon with gold beyond measure. The Bible speaks of voyages to Ophir, returning with riches of gold, silver, ivory, and precious stones. But its location remains unknown. Some claim it lay in Arabia, some in Africa, and some even as far as India. King Solomon's reign, according to legend, was one of immense wealth and wisdom.
He is said to have possessed 500 tons of gold, a treasure so vast it would rival fortunes of modern billionaires. But if Ophir truly existed, where was it? Was it a real land or a symbol of divine blessing? The search for Ophir continues, echoing the human quest for lost lands of abundance, from El Dorado in South America to Atlantis beneath the waves. Perhaps Ophir was real, and its mines are buried beneath sand and time. Or perhaps it was never meant to be found. A myth that endures not because of its truth, but because of the hope it inspires. As we consider these enigmas, we begin to see a larger pattern. The past is not a straight path of progress. It is a cycle of rises and falls, of knowledge gained and lost, of civilizations that reach heights of greatness only to vanish. Each mystery, whether a sealed tunnel, a lost city, or an untranslated script, reminds us of how little we truly know. But perhaps that is the point. The power of these mysteries is not only in solving them, but in how they awaken our imagination. They remind us that history is not complete, that stories remain untold, and that the world still holds secrets waiting to be uncovered. And as we step further into this journey, we are drawn into even deeper questions. Did ancient civilizations know more about the cosmos than we give them credit for? Were myths of gods and giants memories of real beings? And most importantly, what lessons can their rise and fall teach us about our own fragile place in history?
When we look back at the civilizations of the ancient world, one theme repeats over and over: a fascination with the cosmos. From the Sumerians to the Egyptians, from the Maya to the Incas, humanity's earliest cultures seem to gaze at the heavens not with curiosity alone, but with reverence, as if they knew the sky held secrets far beyond their reach. The Sumerians, for example, built entire myths around the movements of stars and planets. Their gods were not distant abstractions, but cosmic rulers whose powers aligned with celestial patterns. Anu, the supreme god of heaven, presided over the skies. Enlil, god of wind and earth, controlled the fertility of the land. And Inanna, the radiant goddess of love and war, was represented by the planet Venus, whose cycles were tracked with astonishing precision. But here lies the riddle. How did people 4,000 years ago chart the skies so accurately? Clay tablets and seals suggest they understood complex astronomical phenomena, possibly including planets invisible to the naked eye. Some scholars argue these depictions are misinterpreted, nothing more than symbolic art. But others wonder, could the Sumerians have inherited knowledge from a source we have forgotten? Their creation myths speak of gods descending from the heavens, beings who shaped mankind and passed down wisdom. Could these gods have been visitors from beyond our world, teachers who showed early humanity the mysteries of the stars? It is a question that blurs the line between mythology and science fiction, and yet it continues to haunt us. This cosmic mystery is mirrored in countless cultures. The Maya, for example, developed calendars so accurate that even today we marvel at their precision. The Egyptians aligned their pyramids with Orion's belt, as if to reflect heaven on earth. And across the Pacific, islanders built megaliths that marked solstices and equinoxes with perfect alignment. Were these simply the results of careful observation over centuries, or could there have been a deeper, shared knowledge, a forgotten science of the cosmos that transcended cultures and continents? Even myths of descent into the underworld carry cosmic overtones. The descent of Inanna, one of the oldest surviving stories in human history, tells of the goddess traveling into the land of the dead to face her sister Erestigal. Stripped of her power, she dies and is later resurrected, symbolically rebirth.
Some scholars interpret this as more than myth. It may represent astronomical cycles, the descent of Venus below the horizon, only to rise again. If true, then myth was more than storytelling. It was a coded language, a way to pass down complex astronomical knowledge through allegory and ritual. But if myths hold knowledge, they also hold warnings. The Sumerian Great Flood story, older than the tale of Noah, tells of divine punishment unleashed upon humanity. Similar flood stories appear across the world, from Mesopotamia to India, from the Americas to the Pacific. Could these myths recall actual cataclysms, ancient floods that reshaped human memory? Or are they symbolic reminders of the fragility of civilization? What we do know is that floods were real. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers, lifeblood of Mesopotamia, could rise without warning, devastating cities. To the Sumerians, such disasters were not natural, they were the will of the gods. Yet, behind the myth may lie a historical truth. Civilizations always stand at the mercy of nature's power. This blending of myth and history reminds us of another sealed secret: the tunnels beneath ancient temples. As with the Temple of the Sun in Peru, we find mysterious sealed passages beneath Teotihuacán. One such tunnel, discovered under the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent, revealed offerings of jade, shells, and liquid mercury, perhaps symbolizing an underworld river. Why were these chambers created, and why were they hidden? Were they ritual spaces, or did they guard something more profound? Time and again, ancient ruins seem to conceal not just artifacts, but intention, as if entire civilizations wanted to leave us puzzles, their wisdom preserved in mystery. And sometimes the greatest mysteries are not sealed away, but vanished entirely. Consider the Minoans of Crete, who thrived from 2600 to 1100 BCE. Their art and architecture were breathtaking. Frescoes of dolphins and dancers, palaces filled with complex plumbing systems, even labyrinthine designs that inspired the myth of the Minotaur. Yet their language, Linear A, remains undeciphered, and their sudden collapse is still unexplained. Did a massive volcanic eruption on nearby Santorini trigger their downfall? Did invading Mycenaeans crush their culture? Or was it something else entirely, some forgotten crisis that erased their greatness? The Olmecs, too, disappeared in mystery, leaving behind only their colossal stone heads and the faint echoes of their culture in later civilizations. And the builders of Teotihuacán left us their pyramids, but not their names. Again and again, we find the same story: civilizations rising with brilliance, then falling into silence, their legacies carried forward only through fragments. What knowledge was lost with them? What secrets about the cosmos, the earth, and even ourselves vanished into the silence of history? Some speculate that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge far beyond their time. Myths of flying chariots, thunderbolts of fire, and weapons of the gods may not simply be metaphors. Could these be memories of technologies that we only now begin to rediscover? Consider modern directed energy weapons, lasers and microwaves capable of disabling machines or burning targets with precision. Once dismissed as fantasy, they are now very real. If we can create such weapons today, could an advanced but forgotten civilization have done the same thousands of years ago? If so, their stories might live on only in myth, remembered as the weapons of gods. But sometimes it is not weapons or power that captivate us, it is wealth. The legend of Ophir, the land that provided King Solomon with untold riches, is one such mystery. The Bible speaks of ships sailing to Ophir and returning with gold, silver, ivory, and exotic goods. Yet its location has never been identified. Some say Ophir was in Arabia, near modern Yemen or Oman. Others believe it was in East Africa, perhaps Ethiopia. Still others claim it was in India, or even as far as Southeast Asia. What we do know is that Solomon's wealth was extraordinary, so much so that legends describe him as one of the richest rulers in history. But was it the result of divine blessing, shrewd trade, or a hidden land overflowing with treasure? The search for Ophir continues, echoing mankind's eternal desire to discover lands of abundance. It's the same desire that fueled quests for El Dorado in South America, or the mythical Atlantis, said to have sunken beneath the waves. Perhaps Ophir, like these other lost lands, is more symbol than geography, a dream of perfection, abundance, and divine favor. But whether Ophir was real or not, its story reminds us of something vital. Myths endure because they speak to human longing. They are not just about gold or treasure. They are about the eternal human quest for something greater, for origins, for meaning, for paradise. And that, perhaps, is the heart of all ancient mysteries. They are not only puzzles for archaeologists and historians, they are reflections of ourselves, of the questions we have always asked. Where did we come from? Why are we here? And what will remain when we are gone? The Sumerians, the Aztecs, the Olmecs, the Minoans, each of these civilizations rose with brilliance, fell into silence, and left us their riddles. Their myths of gods descending from the skies, their ruins aligned with stars, their lost lands of wealth and paradise, all of these still speak to us centuries later. Because ultimately, the greatest mystery may not lie in their answers, but in our response. Do we dismiss these stories as superstition? Or do we dare to listen, to wonder if they hide truths we have forgotten? The journey is far from over. Ahead,
The deeper we journey into the past, the clearer it becomes that human history is not a straight path of progress, but a labyrinth filled with dead ends, forgotten chambers, and hidden passages. Civilizations rise, achieve greatness, and then, often suddenly, fall, leaving behind fragments that future generations struggle to piece together. And within those fragments lie mysteries that refuse to be silenced. Consider the legends of giants. Across the world, in almost every culture, there are stories of beings larger than life. Creatures who walked among humans, built vast cities, or fought epic battles. In the Hebrew Bible, they are the Nephilim, born of divine beings and mortals. In Greek mythology, they are the Titans, primordial beings who warred with the Olympian gods. In Norse sagas, they are the Jotnar, immense and powerful, both feared and respected. But what is most curious is how these stories are echoed in the Americas. In the jungles of Ecuador, tribes speak of giants who once inhabited their land, building great cities now swallowed by the forest. Explorers have even reported finding massive stone blocks and oversized tools that seem to fit these tales. Were these the works of giants, or simply natural formations given mythic meaning? Archaeologists remain skeptical, often dismissing such claims as exaggeration or misinterpretation. Yet the persistence of giant myths across cultures is difficult to ignore. Could these stories be distorted memories of a time when humans lived alongside a race of unusually tall people, perhaps a now extinct branch of humanity? Skeletal remains of exceptionally tall individuals have occasionally been uncovered throughout history, though most lack definitive proof. Still, the question lingers: why does nearly every culture remember giants?
equally baffling are the mysteries not of size, but of language. Words are humanity's bridge across time, yet some languages remain unbroken barriers. The most famous of these is the Linear A script of the Minoans. Thousands of tablets bear its marks, yet no one knows what they say. This undeciphered writing haunts archaeologists. Without it, we cannot hear the Minoans in their own voice. We cannot know their laws, their prayers, their stories. Imagine trying to understand a civilization without access to its words. It is like looking at a painting through a fogged glass. What makes Linear A especially strange is that it does not appear to be related to any known language. With no Rosetta Stone to compare it against, scholars are left with symbols that hint at meaning but reveal nothing. Some believe it hides a completely lost language, a tongue with no surviving descendants. Others suggest it might conceal a connection to early Indo-European or Semitic languages. For now, it remains locked. But Linear A is not the only puzzle. The Indus Valley civilization, one of the most advanced of the ancient world, also left behind thousands of inscribed seals. These tiny pieces, carved with animal motifs and short lines of script, suggest a written language. Yet, like Linear A, it has never been deciphered. Was it a language at all, or merely a system of symbols? Until we can read it, one of the world's first great urban cultures remains silent. These linguistic mysteries remind us that knowledge can vanish just as easily as cities. Languages are fragile. When they die, so too does a civilization's voice. And yet, voices of the past sometimes echo in unexpected ways. The Olmecs, for instance, left no long-written text, yet their colossal stone heads speak volumes. Each one, carved from basalt and weighing many tons, bears a unique face, serene, stern, or proud. They were almost certainly portraits of rulers, their power immortalized in stone. But how were they created? The nearest quarries were dozens of miles away. Without wheels, metal tools, or beasts of burden, how did the Olmecs transport and carve such enormous blocks? Some suggest they floated them on rafts along rivers, while others believe they used vast human labor forces. Whatever the method, the feat demonstrates a mastery of engineering that still impresses modern eyes. Yet the Olmecs, like so many others, vanished. Around 400 BCE, their great centers were abandoned. Climate change, volcanic eruptions, or shifting trade may have played a role, but the suddenness of their disappearance fuels speculation. Did they collapse under internal strife? Were they conquered by neighbors? Or did something even stranger occur, an event that erased them almost overnight? The truth may never be known. What remains are their heads, their art, and their lingering influence on later civilizations like the Maya and Aztecs. Civilizations rise and fall, but sometimes what they leave behind seems almost too advanced for their era. Take the stories of ancient weapons of the gods. Lightning bolts hurled by Zeus, fiery lances wielded by Hindu deities, or flying chariots described in texts like the Mahabharata. To many, these are myths, colorful stories meant to inspire awe. But to some, they hint at technologies far beyond the time in which they were written. The idea may seem fanciful, until we remember how quickly technology can vanish and reappear. In our own age, concepts once thought impossible, like directed energy weapons, are now reality. The U.S. Navy has revealed lasers capable of striking drones out of the sky. Microwave weapons can disable electronics from a distance. What was science fiction a generation ago is now fact. If such leaps are possible in our time, could they not have been possible in the past? Could myths of divine weapons be the faint memory of a lost science? And what of wealth? Treasures so vast they seem almost mythical. The legend of Ophir offers one of the most enduring puzzles. The The Bible speaks of King Solomon's fleets sailing to Ophir, returning with gold, silver, ivory, and precious stones. The quantities were immense. Tons of gold over his reign, a fortune beyond comprehension. But where was Ophir? Arabia? Ethiopia? India? Southeast Asia? Scholars have debated for centuries with no consensus. Some suggest Ophir was never a single place, but a name for faraway lands rich in trade goods. Others argue it was a real kingdom, hidden and lost to time. Whatever the truth, Ophir remains elusive, a dream of abundance that continues to inspire explorers, historians, and seekers of treasure. As these mysteries unfold, a pattern becomes clear. Ancient civilizations were not merely primitive ancestors stumbling towards progress. They were thinkers, dreamers, engineers, and astronomers whose achievements still defy explanation. Their myths may be more than fantasy, their ruins more than stone. Perhaps what we call mystery is not a lack of knowledge, but a reminder of how much has been forgotten. For every city we uncover, 100 lie buried. For every language we decipher, another remains silent. For every myth we dismiss, there may be a truth hidden within. And maybe that's why these enigmas continue to fascinate us. They're not just about the past, they're about ourselves. They remind us that human history is fragile, that civilizations can fall in an instant, and knowledge is never guaranteed. Yet, they also remind us of something hopeful, that even in collapse, even in silence, something endures. A carved head, a sealed tunnel, a fragment of script. These whispers of the past travel across time, calling us to listen. And when we listen, we rediscover not only lost civilizations, but the eternal human spirit, the desire to build, to know, to dream, and to leave behind something that will last. The mysteries of giants, of lost languages, of vanished empires and hidden treasures are not just puzzles to be solved. They are mirrors held up to us, reflecting the questions we continue to ask. Who are we? Where did we come from? And what, in the end, will be our legacy?
Every mystery we uncover in the ancient world seems to open the door to another, as though history itself is teasing us with fragments of a much larger story. A story that stretches across continents and cultures, binding humanity with invisible threads of forgotten memory. We've seen civilizations rise and vanish, Sumer, the Minoans, the Olmecs, the Aztecs, and yet across these vanished worlds there is one constant, a fascination with the sacred and the eternal. Temples, pyramids, and monuments were not simply structures of stone. They were cosmic symbols aligned with stars, infused with myths, and built to last beyond the lives of their makers. Why? Because to the ancients, architecture was not just about shelter, it was about meaning. The pyramids of Giza, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, the step pyramids of Mesoamerica, all of them point to the heavens. All of them suggest a belief that life on earth was connected to something far greater above. The Egyptians, for example, aligned the Great Pyramid with Orion's belt, as though to create a mirror of the cosmos upon the earth. To them, the afterlife was not a vague dream, but a journey through the stars. Their pharaohs were not just rulers, but beings destined to ascend to the heavens, to become one with the gods. Similarly, the Maya constructed observatories and temples that tracked celestial cycles with uncanny precision. Their calendar, feared by many in modern times when it ended in 2012, was not a prophecy of destruction, but a reflection of cosmic cycles, an understanding that time itself was woven into the stars. Even in faraway Stonehenge, massive stones align with solstices, suggesting that the people of ancient Britain, too, were charting the heavens with purpose.
Was this shared fascination with the sky coincidence? Or was it part of a deeper global tradition, a memory passed down from an earlier age when the heavens were seen not just as distant lights, but as a map of divine order? And if so, where did this knowledge come from? Careful observation over centuries could explain much of it, but some researchers wonder if there was more. If a lost civilization older than Sumer or Egypt once held a greater understanding of the cosmos, fragments of which were inherited by later cultures. The idea may sound fantastical, but consider how myths often echo one another across oceans. Flood stories, tales of giants, gods who descend from the sky, all appear in cultures separated by time and geography. Are these simply universal human archetypes, or do they point to shared origins, perhaps rooted in events too ancient for recorded history? This question grows sharper when we turn to civilizations like the Indus Valley. Thriving from 3300 to 1300 BCE, it was one of the great cradles of civilization. Its cities, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, boasted advanced urban planning, sewage systems, and standardized weights and measures. Yet despite their sophistication, the Indus people vanished, and their script remains undeciphered. Who were they? What did they believe? Their seals depict animals, deities, and symbols, but without translation, their voices remain locked away. To this day, we cannot read even a single sentence of their language. Like the Minoans, they left behind a silence we cannot break. This silence is one of the great tragedies of history. Without words, we are left only with shadows. Imagine a future archaeologist discovered fragments of our world but could not read our languages. They might see our cities, our art, our tools, but not our thoughts. That is the challenge we face with the Indus, the Minoans, and countless other lost tongues. Yet, even in silence, the ruins of these civilizations whisper. The baths of Mohenjo-daro suggest ritual cleansing. The standardized bricks reveal unity and central planning. The seals hint at trade, religion, and perhaps a complex social order. Still, the greatest truths remain hidden, just out of reach. Sometimes, however, mysteries endure not because of silence, but because of abundance. Take the Nazca in Peru. For hundreds of square kilometers, enormous geoglyphs stretch across the desert floor. Monkeys, hummingbirds, spiders, even perfectly straight lines running for miles. They are so vast, they can only be fully seen from the air. Why were they created? Some believe they were ritual pathways, walked during ceremonies to honor gods of fertility and water. Others think they were astronomical markers, aligning with constellations or solstices. And of course, some argue they were landing strips or signals from beings from the sky. Whatever their purpose, the Nazca reveal something profound. A people willing to labor for generations to inscribe messages so massive they may not have been intended for human eyes at all. The mystery of purpose extends further in the Andes, where the city of Teotihuacán stands. Its megalithic stones, carved with precision and fitted together without mortar, suggest the level of engineering that seems far ahead of its time. The Gateway of the Sun, an enormous monolith carved with cosmic imagery, may have been a calendar or a ritual marker aligned with the heavens. But how did the builders move such stones, some weighing over 100 tons, without wheels or advanced tools? And why does the site seem to carry echoes of a civilization older than the Incas, older than recorded Andean history? This same enigma arises in Baalbek in Lebanon, where the ruins of the Temple of Jupiter contain the largest stone blocks ever quarried by humans, some weighing over 1,000 tons. The Romans built on the site, but many believe the foundation stones predate them. Who could have moved such massive blocks, and why build on such a scale? Again and again, we find ancient ruins that defy explanation, not just in size, but in intent. Did these people build for gods, for power, for cosmic alignment, or were they reaching for something more mysterious, perhaps that connect with forces we no longer understand? Even myths of wealth and paradise echo these questions. Ophir, the land of Solomon's gold; Aztlan, the Aztec homeland; Atlantis, the island of Plato's tale. All of these reflect the longing for origins, for abundance, for a perfect world now lost. Perhaps these places were real, hidden lands erased by time, or perhaps they're metaphors, symbolic reflections of human desire for paradise. Yet their persistence in myth shows how deeply such ideas are embedded in us. And that brings us to one of the greatest lessons of ancient mysteries. They endure because they matter. They remind us of the fragility of civilization, the power of nature, the hunger for knowledge, and the longing for something greater. The Sumerians fell to famine and invasion. The Minoans may have been shattered by a volcano. The Olmecs vanished for reasons still unclear. The Aztecs were undone by disease, and yet each left behind treasures, not just of gold and stone, but of wonder. Their ruins challenge us, their myths inspire us, their mysteries call us to imagine worlds beyond our own and to ask, if they achieved so much, what might we achieve? If they fell so suddenly, what lessons should we learn? Because in the end, the mysteries of the ancient world are not only about the past, they are about our future.
The mysteries of the ancient world are not just relics of stone or faded scripts. They are echoes of human ambition, fear, creativity, and faith. Every ruin, every myth, every undeciphered tablet is like a voice calling from the depths of time. And if we listen carefully, those voices tell us more than just their own stories. They warn us, inspire us, and remind us of our place in a fragile, ever-changing world. One such voice belongs to the people of Easter Island, or Rapa Nui. Here, in one of the most remote places on Earth, the islanders carved and erected nearly 900 colossal statues known as moai. Each moai, with its solemn face and towering form, gazes inland as if watching over the people. But why were they built, and how were they moved? The moai are carved from volcanic tuff, and some stand over 30 feet tall, weighing more than 70 tons. The islanders lacked wheels and draft animals, so how did they transport these giants across rugged terrain? Some theories suggest they used ropes to walk the statues forward, rocking them side to side. Others argued they used sledges and wooden rollers, but the logistics remain astonishing. Even more mysterious is what the moai meant. Were they ancestors, deified rulers meant to guard the island? Were they representations of spiritual power? The answer may lie in the islanders' own belief system, where mana, spiritual energy, was embodied in objects and people. To erect a moai may have been to channel power itself. Yet the greatest mystery of Rapa Nui is not the statues, but the island's fate. By the time Europeans arrived, the society that built the moai had collapsed. Deforestation, overpopulation, and internal conflict may have played a role. Some scholars argue that climate shifts also contributed, straining the island's fragile ecosystem. Whatever the cause, a thriving culture unraveled, leaving behind silent statues as its legacy. Easter Island is a haunting reminder of how civilizations can fall, not through conquest, but through ecological collapse. A society that overused its resources brought itself to ruin. And in this way, Rapa Nui is not only an ancient mystery, it is a mirror for our own time. But Rapa Nui is not alone in its silence. Across the Pacific, other lost civilizations left behind enigmatic traces. The Nan Madol ruins in Micronesia, sometimes called the Venice of the Pacific, consist of massive stone structures built upon artificial islets. The basalt columns, some weighing tons, were stacked like logs to form walls and temples. How were these stones moved across water and fitted into place with such precision? The people of Pohnpei, where Nan Madol lies, tell stories of sorcerers who used magic,
to fly the stones into plates. Scholars suggest more earthly methods, rafts, canoes, and ingenious engineering. Yet even today, the logistics are staggering. Nan Madol was once the center of a powerful dynasty, but by the time Europeans encountered it, the city had long been abandoned. Why? Some point to political collapse, others to the difficulty of sustaining life in such a watery environment. As with so many lost cities, the true reason remains uncertain. And then there is Atlantis, perhaps the most famous lost civilization of all. First described by Plato over 2,000 years ago, Atlantis was said to be a mighty island nation, blessed with wealth and power until it grew corrupt and was destroyed in a single day and night by the gods. Was Atlantis real? Some believe Plato's story was allegory, a warning about hubris and moral decay. Others argue it may have been based on a real place, perhaps the Minoan civilization devastated by the eruption of Santorini. Still others claim it was an entirely separate land, now lost beneath the waves of the Atlantic. The allure of Atlantis lies not just in whether it existed, but in what it represents. The dream of a golden age, a time when humanity lived in harmony with abundance, only to lose it through pride. It is a myth that resonates across time, because it is not only about the past, it is about the dangers we face when ambition outstrips wisdom. But Atlantis is not alone in this category of mythic homelands. We've already seen Aztlan of the Aztecs and Ophir of Solomon. In the Celtic world, there is Avalon, the island of eternal youth. In Hindu tradition, there is Shambhala, a hidden kingdom of enlightenment. Across cultures, we find the same yearning for a perfect place that lies just beyond reach. Are these purely symbolic, reflections of human longing? Or do they conceal fragments of memory, places that once existed but are now lost to time? Even if purely mythic, they matter deeply because they reveal something timeless about us, our hunger for origins, for paradise, for a lost perfection that once was or might yet be. Yet while some mysteries lie beneath waves or in ruins, others are locked in the stars themselves. The Dogon people of Mali in West Africa, for example, have long been said to possess astonishing knowledge of astronomy. According to some accounts, they knew details about the star Sirius and its invisible companion long before modern telescopes confirmed them. Did they learn this through ancient observation, or was there another source? The Dogon themselves tell of beings from the sky, the Nomo, who shared knowledge with humanity. Whether fact or myth, the story is striking because it echoes across the world, gods or teachers descending from the heavens to guide humankind. It's tempting to dismiss these stories as invention, and yet, when so many cultures speak of knowledge coming from the skies, we can't help but wonder, were these merely metaphors for inspiration or memories of something else? The truth may never be known, but what is certain is that ancient peoples watched the stars with care, embedding their myths, rituals, and monuments with celestial meaning. They believed the sky was not distant, but intimately tied to human destiny. And perhaps in this, they were wiser than we realize. For while we see the stars as objects of science, they saw them as symbols of meaning. They understood something we often forget, that to live on Earth is to live in a universe, connected to forces larger than ourselves. As we travel through these mysteries, a pattern emerges. The lost cities, the sealed tunnels, the undeciphered languages, the myths of gods and giants all point to a single truth, that history is not complete. It is fractured, with missing pages and broken threads. But maybe that is what makes it beautiful. If we had all the answers, there would be no wonder, no curiosity, no drive to seek. The mysteries themselves are gifts, calling us to explore, to question, and to imagine. The ancients built with stone, but they also built with story. Their myths were not distractions from reality, they were ways of making sense of it. And in their myths, we see reflections of ourselves, our hopes, our fears, our dreams of paradise, and our warnings of destruction. To study ancient mysteries is not just to study the past, it is to study humanity itself.
As our journey through the mysteries of the past continues, we find ourselves standing at the threshold of two worlds: the world of history that we can measure, date, and excavate, and the world of myth, where truths are wrapped in story, waiting to be uncovered. Time and again, the line between the two blurs. Archaeology gives us ruins, but myth gives them meaning. Together, they weave a picture of humanity that is far more complex than textbooks alone can describe. Take the story of Gobekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. This site, often called the world's first temple, was built over 11,000 years ago, long before the rise of Sumer, Egypt, or any of the so-called first civilizations. Here, enormous stone pillars, some weighing 20 tons, were carved with intricate animals and abstract symbols. Arranged in circles, they form a monumental site that should not have been possible for a hunter-gatherer society. For decades, historians believed that agriculture came first, leading to settlements, and only then to temples. Gobekli Tepe shattered that model. Here was a temple older than farming itself, suggesting that spirituality and community ritual may have sparked civilization, not the other way around. But the mystery does not end there. After centuries of use, the builders deliberately buried Gobekli Tepe under tons of earth. Why? Was it an act of preservation, a ritual closure, or an attempt to hide knowledge? We may never know. But the site proves one thing: our ancestors were far more capable, far earlier than we ever imagined. From Gobekli Tepe, we travel east to Mesopotamia, where ziggurats rose like stairways to the heavens. These stepped pyramids were not only temples, but cosmic symbols connecting heaven and earth. The most famous, the ziggurat of Ur, may have inspired the biblical Tower of Babel, a structure meant to reach the sky, an act of human ambition that drew divine judgment. The story of Babel is often read as myth, but it may reflect real tensions. As cities grew, as languages multiplied, as human pride swelled, divisions arose. The myth reminds us that unity and power can just as easily lead to downfall. But what if the story also conceals a memory of advanced knowledge, languages lost, technologies scattered, civilizations fractured by time? Could the confusion of tongues symbolize not just the birth of languages, but the loss of a shared wisdom, a golden age dissolved into fragments? From Mesopotamia, we journeyed to Egypt, where the pyramids still pierce the sky with impossible precision. The Great Pyramid alone contains over 2 million stone blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons. How these were quarried, transported, and fitted with such accuracy remains debated. Theories range from ramps and sledges to lost techniques we can no longer replicate. What is undeniable is their astronomical alignment. The Great Pyramid is oriented almost perfectly to the cardinal points. The shafts within align with stars that held deep meaning for the Egyptians. To them, these were not tombs, but cosmic gateways, vehicles for the pharaoh's journey into eternity. And here we return to a recurring theme: connection with the stars. Again and again, ancient peoples built as though the heavens were not distant, but integral to their lives. They mapped their myths onto the cosmos, their gods into constellations, their temples into star charts. Why? Were the stars simply guides for agriculture and ritual, or did they represent something deeper? A belief that humanity itself was born of the cosmos, that our destiny was written in the skies. And even in South America, we see this pattern. The Inca capital of Cusco was designed in the shape of a puma, a sacred animal, aligned with stars in the Milky Way. The Inca believed that the heavens mirrored the earth, that rivers reflected the galaxy, and that by aligning their cities with the cosmos, they aligned themselves with divine order.
It is tempting to think of these beliefs as superstitions, but perhaps they reflect something we have lost, the sense that humanity is not separate from the universe, but part of its rhythm. And yet, for all their cosmic wisdom, these civilizations also faced collapse. The Inca, like the Aztecs, fell to Spanish conquest and European disease. The Egyptians declined under waves of invasion. The builders of Gobekli Tepe buried their own temple. Over and over, greatness fades into ruin. But ruins are not silent. They carry whispers of knowledge. The Nazca lines stretching for miles across the desert may have been ritual pathways, but some align with celestial events. The Tiwanaku stones, with their perfect cuts, suggest techniques we cannot fully explain. The Baalbek trilithon, with blocks over 1,000 tons, challenges our assumptions about ancient engineering. Each of these sites is like a question mark carved into stone. How did they do this, and why? Of course, skeptics argue that there is nothing mysterious. With enough time, labor, and ingenuity, ancient peoples achieved these feats without advanced technology. Now, perhaps they're right. But what makes the mysteries endure is not just the question of how, but the possibility of what we have forgotten. Could civilizations have risen and fallen before recorded history, leaving behind fragments we now call myth? Could knowledge have been lost and rediscovered in cycles we scarcely perceive? This possibility becomes even more tantalizing when we look at myths of great floods. From Mesopotamia to India, from the Bible to Native American traditions, nearly every culture tells of a flood that destroyed the world, sparing only a few survivors. Archaeology has confirmed that massive floods did occur at the end of the last ice age, as glaciers melted and seas rose. Did these events inspire the stories, or were the stories memories of something even greater, a cataclysm that erased civilizations we no longer remember? Some scientists believe rising seas swallowed entire coastal cities, leaving their ruins beneath the waves. Indeed, underwater archaeology has revealed structures off the coasts of India, Japan, and the Mediterranean that may represent ancient settlements lost to the sea. Could it be that the myths of Atlantis and other sunken lands are not pure invention, but echoes of real disasters? If so, then our picture of history may be incomplete by design, not because the ancients failed to record it, but because the records themselves were drowned, buried, or lost in fire and war. And this is perhaps the greatest mystery of all, not what we know, but what we do not. For every site like Gobekli Tepe uncovered, there may be dozens still hidden. For every script like Linear A, there may be languages we have yet to even discover. For every myth we dismiss, there may be a truth waiting beneath. The ancients remind us of our own fragility. They built with stone, but time reduced their empires to dust. They wrote their stories, but language has faded into silence. They dreamed of eternity, but their cities crumbled. And yet, they endure. Their ruins inspire awe. Their myths spark imagination. Their mysteries draw us into journeys that span thousands of years. Perhaps that is their true legacy. Not only their inventions, their temples, or their gold, but the questions they left behind. Questions that challenge us to look beyond the present, to imagine the vast tapestry of human history, and to wonder what may still lie hidden. Because in the end, every ruin is not just a relic, it is a mirror that shows us the brilliance and the fragility of humanity, the heights we can reach, and the falls we can suffer. And as long as we continue to seek, the mysteries will never truly be lost.
The more we uncover about the ancient world, the clearer it becomes that history is not a simple line from primitive to advanced. Instead, it is a cycle, a rhythm of creation and collapse, of knowledge gained and knowledge lost. Civilizations rise to astonishing heights, only to vanish, leaving behind riddles in stone, myth, and silence. And within those riddles lie questions that reach far beyond archaeology. They force us to confront the limits of what we know and to imagine possibilities that stretch the boundaries of history itself. One of the most striking mysteries is that of lost technologies. Time and again, we see evidence of skills that seem almost impossible for their age. The precision of the stones at Sacsayhuaman and Peru, cut and fitted so tightly that even a blade of grass cannot pass between them. The enormous trilithons at Baalbek in Lebanon, weighing more than 1,000 tons, somehow transported and placed without cranes or machines. The mysterious vitrified forts of Scotland, where stone walls appear to have been melted by intense heat, as if by a technology we do not understand. Were these feats the result of sheer ingenuity, patient labor, and forgotten methods? Or do they point to something more, an understanding of materials and energy that has been lost to time? Modern engineers often marvel at the scale and precision of ancient construction, acknowledging that we ourselves would struggle to replicate some of these works even with today's machines. Yet the ancients did them with stone tools, ropes, and human hands, or so we believe. Could it be that they knew something we do not? The myths of ancient civilizations often speak of powerful tools and weapons, gifts of the gods or treasures of lost ages. The Vajra of Hindu lore capable of summoning lightning, the thunderbolts of Zeus, the flying machines described in the Mahabharata. To skeptics, these are symbolic tales. To others, they are distorted memories of real technologies that may have perished with their civilizations. If true, then history is not only about what has been preserved, but about what has been forgotten. Another enigma lies in the world of medicine. Ancient peoples often displayed a knowledge of healing that surprises modern scholars. In Peru, skulls have been found with evidence of successful trepanation, holes drilled into the skull to relieve pressure or treat injury. Astonishingly, many of the patients survived, as shown by bone regrowth. How did these ancient surgeons develop such skill without modern tools or anesthesia? In Egypt, papyri describe treatments for wounds, fevers, and even surgical procedures. The Ebers papyrus, over 3,000 years old, contains hundreds of remedies, some of which align with modern medical practices. And in China, ancient texts detail acupuncture, herbal medicine, and theories of energy flow that still influence medicine today. Were these purely the results of trial and error, or did ancient civilizations have access to a deeper understanding of the body? The same question arises with mathematics and astronomy. The Mayan calendar, the Sumerian sexagesimal system, the geometry of the pyramids all suggest an advanced grasp of numbers and cycles. The alignment of monuments with solstices and equinoxes shows that the ancients were not simply observing the heavens, but calculating with precision. The most famous example is perhaps Stonehenge, whose arrangement of stones marks the midsummer sunrise and midwinter sunset with accuracy. But similar alignments are found around the world. In Chichen Itza, where the shadow of a serpent descends the pyramid at the equinox. In Egypt, where temples aligned with solar events. And in Peru, where the Intihuatana stone at Machu Picchu was called the hitching post of the sun. All of these point to a truth we often forget, that ancient peoples lived in harmony with the rhythms of nature, and their survival depended on it. By studying the stars, they were not merely seeking knowledge, they were ensuring their crops, their rituals, their very survival. But perhaps they also saw something more. Perhaps they believed, as many myths suggest, that humanity itself was tied to the cosmos, that we are not isolated beings on a lonely planet, but part of a larger design.
This sense of cosmic connection appears again in stories of great floods. Nearly every culture has a flood myth. The Sumerian story of Utnapishtim, the biblical Noah, the Hindu tale of Manu, the Native American stories of deluges that reshaped the land. Modern science confirms that at the end of the Ice Age, melting glaciers raised sea levels dramatically, flooding coastal areas across the globe. Could these myths be memories of those cataclysms, passed down for thousands of years? If so, they may represent the oldest stories humanity has ever told. Echoes of disasters that reshaped our world and wiped away entire civilizations. Imagine the cities that may lie beneath the seas, drowned as waters rose. Off the coast of India, near Dwarka, underwater ruins have been discovered that some believe could date back thousands of years. Off Japan's Unaguni Island, submerged terraces and structures suggest an ancient settlement. Could these be remnants of civilizations erased by floods, their memories surviving only in myth? If so, then history as we know it may only be the surface of a far deeper ocean of human experience. And this brings us to one of the most haunting questions of all. How much of our history has been lost? Fires destroyed the Library of Alexandria, erasing untold volumes of ancient knowledge. Wars and conquest shattered culture, scattering their wisdom. Earthquakes, volcanoes, and floods buried cities. Time itself devoured languages, rituals, and stories. For every site we uncover, countless others remain hidden. For every text we read, another lies in silence. Our picture of the past is like a painting with vast sections missing, the outlines visible, but the details gone. Yet this is not cause for despair. It is cause for wonder. Because what survives, whether it is the towering Moai of Easter Island, the Nazca Lines, or the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, reminds us of the resilience of human creativity. Even against time, destruction, and silence, something endures. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all. Not how civilizations fell, but how their voices still reach us. Across thousands of years, across oceans and deserts, their stories call out, "Remember us, learn from us, do not forget." When we stand before the ruins of a lost city, we are not only looking at the past, we are looking at ourselves. For the rise and fall of civilizations is not only their story, it is ours. What happened to them can happen to us. Their brilliance reflects our potential. Their collapse warns of our fragility. And their mysteries inspire us to keep searching, keep questioning, keep dreaming. Because as long as we wonder, as long as we seek, the story is not over.
The ruins of the past are like open books with missing pages. What they show us is awe-inspiring, but what is absent makes them even more haunting. For every pyramid that still stands, there are countless structures lost to sands, floods, or fire. For every myth preserved, there are entire traditions forgotten. Yet what remains is enough to tell us one undeniable truth. Ancient civilizations were never simple, never primitive. They were seekers of meaning, builders of wonders, and keepers of mysteries that we are only beginning to rediscover. Take the story of the Maya, one of the most brilliant civilizations of the Americas. They developed advanced mathematics, including the concept of zero, centuries before Europe embraced it. They built towering pyramids, cities with complex urban planning, and calendars of astonishing precision. Their astronomical observations rivaled those of any ancient culture. And yet their collapse is one of history's greatest puzzles. Around the 9th century CE, the great Maya cities of the southern lowlands were abandoned. Stone temples fell silent. Population declined dramatically. Why?
One explanation is environmental collapse. Evidence suggests that prolonged droughts struck the region, devastating agriculture. With no food, cities could no longer sustain their populations. Political strife likely made matters worse as rival city-states fought for dwindling resources. Others argue that disease, invasion, or internal rebellion may have contributed. But the truth is probably a combination of many factors, a reminder that even the greatest civilizations can crumble when nature, politics, and chance collide. Yet the Maya did not vanish entirely. Their descendants still live in Central America today, preserving traditions, languages, and rituals. What collapsed was not a people, but a system. Still, the mystery of their abandoned cities, swallowed by jungle, continues to fascinate us. Among the Maya's most intriguing legacies is their calendar. Far more than a tool for marking days, it was a cosmic system linking human life to cycles of the universe. Time was sacred, a rhythm connecting earth and sky. When modern people misunderstood the end of a Maya cycle in 2012 as a prediction of apocalypse, they missed the deeper truth. For the Maya, endings were not destruction, but transformation. One cycle ends, another begins. This cyclical view of time contrasts sharply with our linear sense of progress. To the Maya, history was not a march forward, but a dance, with patterns repeating across ages. Perhaps in this they captured something we have forgotten, that civilizations, like the seasons, rise and fall, but life endures. The Maya are not the only ones who leave us such profound reminders. In the Andes, the Inca Empire rose to greatness in less than a century, building roads, terraces, and cities across mountains that would challenge even modern engineers. Their capital, Cusco, was designed with sacred geometry. Machu Picchu, perched on a mountain top, is both an architectural marvel and a spiritual symbol. How did the Inca build such wonders without iron tools, wheels, or beasts of burden beyond llamas? Their stonework, like that at Sacsayhuaman, remains unmatched. Blocks of irregular shape fitted together with such precision that they seem grown, not built. Earthquakes that toppled colonial buildings left Inca walls intact, as if their builders understood the earth itself. But like the Aztecs, the Inca fell swiftly to Spanish conquest. Disease, brought by strangers from across the ocean, spread before the Spanish even arrived, weakening the empire. Civil war between rival heirs further fractured their power. When Francisco Pizarro captured the Inca ruler Atahualpa, the empire unraveled. The Inca, like the Aztecs, remind us how fragile power can be. A civilization that stretched thousands of miles, united by roads and ruled with authority, collapsed within decades. Yet their legacy remains carved into the Andes, whispering of ingenuity and resilience. Far to the east in Asia, another enduring mystery lies with the Great Wall of China. While not a lost civilization, the wall represents the same human impulse to build beyond measure, to leave behind something that defies time. Stretching thousands of miles, the wall was constructed, rebuilt, and extended over centuries. Its purpose was clear: defense against nomadic tribes. Yet the sheer scale raises questions. Was it purely military, or also symbolic? A statement of power and permanence. To build on such a scale required not just labor, but vision, the belief that stone could stand as a line between chaos and order. And this vision connects with so many of the mysteries we've explored. Whether in Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Andes, or China, ancient peoples sought permanence in a world of impermanence. They built to endure, to defy time, to align with forces greater than themselves. Yet time always wins. Walls crumble, empires fall, scripts are forgotten. Still, even in ruin, there is beauty. The Great Wall, like the pyramids, like Machu Picchu, remains not just as a relic of the past, but as a lesson for the future. That lesson becomes sharper when we consider how many civilizations fell not by conquest, but by environmental change. The Sumerians faced salinization of their fields. The Maya endured drought. The people of Easter Island cut down their forests. Again and again we see the same truth. When humans overreach, when they fail to live in balance with nature, collapse follows. Perhaps this is why myths so often warn of floods, fires, and divine wrath. They are not just stories, but cultural memories, warnings encoded in tale and ritual, urging future generations to remember. The story of Atlantis, for example, is not just about a lost island. It is a warning about pride, excess, and moral decay. Plato's tale reminds us that greatness without wisdom invites disaster. The myth endures not because we know it is real, but because we fear it could be. And perhaps this is the greatest thread uniting all ancient mysteries. Whether in myths of giants, tales of floods, or ruins aligned with stars, we find the same underlying theme. Humanity is fragile. Civilizations are powerful but never eternal. And the line between flourishing and collapse is thinner than we like to imagine. But these mysteries are not only warnings. They are also sources of inspiration. They remind us of what humans can achieve. The artistry of the Maya calendar, the engineering of the Inca roads, the vision of the Egyptian pyramids, the endurance of the Great Wall. They remind us that even in collapse, something endures. Stone, story, spirit. And they remind us that we too are builders in time. One day our cities may lie in ruin, our languages may fade, our technologies may be forgotten, but perhaps like the ancients, we will leave behind echoes, ruins, myths, mysteries that inspire those yet to come. For history is not just the story of the past, it is the mirror of the present and the shadow of the future.
As we come to the end of this long journey through ancient mysteries, we realize something profound. These stories are not just about lost cities, vanished peoples, or ruins swallowed by jungle and sand. They are about us, our nature, our dreams, our fears, and our fragile hold on the future. The ancients left behind puzzles not because they wished to confuse us, but because time has a way of scattering memory. Fire consumes libraries, floods drown cities, wars shatter monuments, languages fade into silence. What remains are fragments, whispers, shadows of greatness that once was. And yet, those fragments are enough to ignite our imagination. Think of the Great Pyramids, rising from the desert like eternal mountains. Think of Machu Picchu, perched in the clouds, a city of stone and spirit. Think of the Nazca Lines, so vast they can only be seen from the sky. Think of the Moai of Easter Island, silent guardians staring across centuries. Each one reminds us that human beings have always reached for something greater than survival. We have always sought meaning, permanence, connection with forces larger than ourselves. The ancients built not only for utility, but for eternity. And in this, they speak directly to us, because today we too live in a world of wonders and fragility. We build cities that gleam with steel and glass, networks that span the globe, machines that reach into space. Yet we also face threats, climate change, conflict, disease that mirror the challenges of the past. When we look at the collapse of Sumer,
The fall of the Maya, the silence of Easter Island. We are not just studying history. We are looking into a mirror of what might happen to us if we fail to learn. That is why the mysteries matter. Not because they are unsolved puzzles, but because they carry lessons encoded in stone and story. They remind us of what we can achieve and what we can lose. And yet, they also remind us of something hopeful, that even in collapse, something endures. Civilizations fall, but their ruins remain. Languages die, but myths survive. Peoples vanish, but their spirit lingers in descendants, in memory, in mystery. This endurance is a kind of immortality. The builders of Gobekli Tepe, the carvers of the Olmec heads, the priests of Sumer, the scribes of Egypt, they are gone, but their works, their myths, their questions still live. And through them they speak to us across millennia. Perhaps that is the greatest gift of ancient mysteries. They make us feel the presence of the past. They remind us that we are not alone in time. We are part of a vast human story stretching back tens of thousands of years, filled with triumphs and tragedies, with brilliance and collapse. And yet, just might they remind us that the story is not over. Because if civilizations can fall, they can also rise again. If knowledge can be lost, it can also be rediscovered. If myths can survive for thousands of years, then so can hope. So the next time we look at a ruin, a myth, or a mystery, let us not only ask, what happened to them? Let us also ask, what will happen to us? Will our descendants one day stand among the ruins of our cities, wondering how we built them, why we fell, and what we believed? Will they read our stories, or will our languages fade into silence like linear A in the Indus script? Will they marvel at our technology, or will it vanish like the rumored weapons of the gods, remembered only in legend? We cannot know, but we can choose. The ancients have given us their warnings, their lessons, and their inspiration. It is up to us to listen, to build wisely, to live in balance with nature, to remember that greatness without humility is fragile, and that civilizations are only as strong as their ability to endure change. The mysteries of the past will always fascinate us. We will always wonder about Atlantis, Ophir, Aztlan, Shambhala. We will always marvel at the pyramids, the ziggurats, the Moai, the Nazca lines. We will always puzzle over undeciphered scripts, vanished empires, and myths of giants and gods. And that is as it should be. Because mystery is not a failure of knowledge. It is the fuel of imagination. It is what drives us to explore, to dig, to dream. Without mystery, we would stop seeking. And without seeking, we would stop growing. So let us embrace the mysteries. Let us see them not as gaps in history, but as gifts, reminders that the world is larger than we know, that time is deeper than we imagine, and that humanity is more extraordinary than we realize. The ancients are still with us, in their ruins, in their myths, in their mysteries. And as long as we keep asking, keep searching, keep wondering, they will never be forgotten. For the story of humanity is not only about answers, it is about questions. Questions carved in stone, whispered in myth, sealed in tunnels, drowned in floods, and written in the stars. And the greatest question of all is this: what will we leave behind?